A city bus double-decker crashes into a stationary truck on the West Kowloon Highway, leaving 2 dead and 16 injured. In Beijing, an official spokesman says the new foreign investment law won't change the current arrangements for Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan investors. And Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou sues Canadian authorities over her arrest last December.
Good evening. A city bus double-decker crashed into a truck that malfunctioned on the West Kowloon Highway this morning. The drivers of the 2 vehicles died and 16 others were injured. More details from Pinky Wong.
A severely battered bus front. The fatal crash happened at 10:30 this morning. A truck broke down in the middle of the West Kowloon Highway. Sometime later, a city bus double-decker came along and slammed into the back of the stationary truck. The 59-year-old bus driver was thrown out of his vehicle. He was certified dead at the scene.
We believe the truck drivers were trying to put something on the road in order to alert the other road users and not to crash with the malfunctioning truck.
The 54-year-old truck driver was sent to hospital and declared dead shortly afterwards. The injured, 11 women and 5 men, aged between 23 and 69, were sent to Queen Elizabeth Hospital and Kwong Wah Hospital. This passenger says the speed of the bus wasn't too fast at the time of the crash. I didn't reckon any abnormal signs of the bus driver this morning as we greeted each other, he added. The police cordoned off 2 of the 4 lanes on the highway after the incident. Other drivers could still get to the Western Harbour crossings by the remaining 2 lanes.
We would strongly advise all drivers or road users, if they encounter similar situation, they should walk to the roadside and seek for help.
A driving expert echoed his view.
This is very dangerous because so many cars behind.
He also says drivers in trouble should try to take their vehicle to the slow lane and turn on their hazard warning indicators. Government officials and city bus representatives paid visits to the injured. According to the bus company, it was the bus driver's 3rd trip on his morning shift, which began at around 7 this morning.
He was on sick leave on the 1st of March, and he resumed the duty on the 2nd of March. So he should be recovered.
The bus company also says the compensation process will be handled by the insurance company. Police investigations are still underway. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
Vice Premier Han Zheng today praised the SAR government for its decision to outlaw the pro-independence Hong Kong National Party. This came during his meeting in Beijing with Hong Kong members of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Han also said he is looking forward to Hong Kong and Macau integrating into the Greater Bay Area in a regional development plan. Christy Leung has details.
This afternoon, Vice Premier Han Zheng met Hong Kong and Macau members of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. It was his first meeting with them after taking over as the head of a central coordination group overseeing the 2 SAR's affairs last year. Speaking after the meeting, local delegates said the Vice Premier praised the SAR government for this decision to outlaw the pro-independence Hong Kong National Party.
The country's security is of paramount importance.
Han also touched on the developments of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area.
He said this is a very important strategic development for the country. He encouraged us as CPPCC members to continue to work for for Hong Kong and for the country in general.
Sources say the Vice Premier will see Hong Kong delegates of the National People's Congress, or the NPC, on Wednesday. The NPC will open its annual session tomorrow with the proposed foreign investment law at the top of its agenda. The new law will give foreign investors the same privileges as Chinese companies in most sectors, but it doesn't specify whether investors from Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan will continue to be treated as foreign investors. Speaking in a meeting today, the NPC's spokesperson Zhang Yisu said investments from the three places are currently managed in accordance with foreign investments. It said the new law will not change the relevant legal applications. In a meeting hosted by the CPPCC's Standing Committee member Henry Tang, local delegates proposed ideas to attract Hong Kong people to move to the Greater Bay Area, such as issuing mainland identity cards for Hong Kong people there. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Huawei's chief financial officer is suing Canadian authorities for violating her constitutional rights. In a civil lawsuit filed in British Columbia last Friday, Meng Wanzhou's lawyers said the manner in which authorities obtained evidence and information from her was a serious violation of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The suit alleges that border officials and the National Police Force detained, searched and interrogated Meng in Vancouver last December before telling her she was under arrest. Officials allegedly questioned her under the guise of a routine customs examination and used the opportunity to compel her to provide evidence and information. Meanwhile, National People's Congress spokesman Zhang Yesui accused Washington of double standards when it comes to Huawei. Zhang said the US took China's national security law out of context and played up the so-called security risks associated with Chinese companies.
U.S. Democrats believe President Donald Trump obstructed justice in the Russia collusion probe, and they aim to prove it in a probe of their own. The House Judiciary Committee will request documents from dozens of people and organizations. This includes the Department of Justice, Donald Trump Jr., and the Chief Financial Officer of the Trump Organization. Committee Chairman Gerald Nadler points to the firing of FBI Director James Comey as evidence of obstruction, but it doesn't warrant impeaching Trump. This comes as one House Republican called the probe a waste of time because it's a repeat of the Robert Mueller investigation.
We will be issuing document requests to over 60 different people and individuals from the White House to the Department of Justice, Donald Trump Jr., Allen Weisselberg, to begin the investigations, to present the case to American people about obstruction of justice, corruption and abuse of power. Impeachment is a long way down the road. We don't have the facts yet.
Nadler is setting the framework now that the Democrats are not to believe the Mueller report. They're now saying we have to do our own investigation. After you had hundreds of interviews, millions of dollars spent in the Senate and the House, and they find no collusion.
The White House National Security Advisor hailed U.S. President Donald Trump's summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as a success. This despite a breakdown in negotiations. John Bolton tried to paint Trump as having advanced Washington's interests by rejecting a bad deal.
Well, I don't consider the summit a failure. I consider it a success defined as the president protecting and advancing American national interest. And the issue really was whether North Korea was prepared to accept what the president called the big deal, which is denuclearize entirely. Under a definition the president handed to Kim Jong-un, and have the potential for an enormous economic future. And the issue really...
Bolton also insisted the summit ended the way it did because Trump was not desperate for a deal. His comments followed contradictory accounts given by Washington and Pyongyang after last week's summit. Trump said Kim insisted that the U.S. lift all economic sanctions without the North fully committing to scrapping its entire nuclear arsenal. But North Korea said it had only demanded a partial relief of sanctions.
The Dutch husband of a British teenager who ran away to join the Islamic State group says he wants to return to the Netherlands with her and their newborn son. That's after Britain stripped Shamima Begum of her citizenship last month on security grounds. This is Jago Riedijk, the Dutch man who worked as a welder for Islamic State and married British teenager Shamima Begum in 2015. In a candid interview conducted from a Kurdish-run detention centre, the 27-year-old told British broadcaster Sky that he had met the runaway teenager within days of her arrival in Syria. The couple's first 2 children starved to death during their time spent in the last pocket of Syria held by ISIS. Riedijk admitted both of them had fallen into the trap of the extremist group's brainwashing and quickly discovered that life wasn't at all what they were led to believe.
Basically, if you have a negative attitude towards the Islamic State, it's a very dangerous thing. They will consider you a rebel, they will arrest you, they will probably torture you, might even kill you.
Riedijk was speaking from personal experience as he was jailed and tortured 4 months after joining ISIS on accusations of being a Dutch spy. He was eventually released.
So what you want the world to know is, because you're a good person, through the goodness of your heart, you join the Islamic State for humanitarian purposes. Is that what you want people to try and believe?
Partially, yeah. Partially. Not all of it. Of course, there is other reasons, but yeah, we mainly came to help the Syrian people. That's the main reason most of the people came here.
Meanwhile, the BBC also reported that Riedijk now wants to return to his native Netherlands with his wife and surviving son. Dutch authorities declined to comment on individual cases. Back in 2015, Begum fled East London with 2 friends to Syria to marry ISIS fighters. That happened at a time when the group's online recruitment program lured many impressionable young people to its self-proclaimed caliphate. The now 19-year-old resurfaced at a Syrian refugee camp recently and told reporters she wanted to come home. However, her apparent lack of remorse has triggered a backlash in Britain, even from her own family. It led British Home Secretary Sajid Javid to revoke her citizenship, even while saying he wouldn't make a decision that would render a person stateless. While it's unclear if Begum has committed a crime, her comments and those of her husband throw into sharp relief deeper questions about how Western societies deal with those who joined ISIS but now want to return to their home countries.
Algeria's ailing president has attempted to register for his country's upcoming election. He no longer lives in the country. Still, his overseas actions spark massive protests there. Our Peter Coveos has details.
Demonstrators in Algiers marched outside the Constitutional Council. That is the building in Algeria's capital where presidential hopefuls had to register formally by midnight Sunday. One of the names was Abdelaziz Bouteflika, the current president. He is 82 and gravely ill, having suffered a stroke in 2013. He is currently in Switzerland receiving medical treatment. Bouteflika's campaign manager submitted the forms on his behalf. Abdeline Zalain also read out a letter, which included a major concession from Bouteflika. In the message, he said that Bouteflika would step down after a year, if re-elected. Bouteflika has been president for 20 years, but his statement and intentions only created confusion. Previously, all candidates had to submit their application in person, but the Algerian state news agency, APS, reported that was not necessary. The head of the election monitoring watchdog contradicted that statement. It's still unclear if he is eligible to run. Protesters definitely don't want him to run and demonstrated against their leader. They demanded he not seek a 5th term in office and clashed with police. Opponents of the president say his poor health means he's unfit to lead. They also claim chronic corruption and poor economic reforms have led to high unemployment. The jobless rate for people under 30 is 25% in the North African country. The rallies against the president have been going on for days and have not been limited to just Algeria. Thousands of Algerians in France also rallied against Bouteflika. In Paris, they chanted the famous slogan of the 2011 Arab Spring, that people want to bring down the regime. The uprising that year unseated rulers in a number of Arab countries. Peter Coveos, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, SpaceX's Dragon capsule docks with the International Space Station. A tornado kills at least 23 in the U.S. state of Alabama. And carnivals in Europe.
That was what we moved here for, was to breed alpacas.
It was the biggest impulsive decision they made, and it turned out to be one of their best.
We just fell in love with it. We got caught along with the excitement. I feel confident in what we do here.
Tonight, Where the Wild Men Are, with Ben Fogle, Season 5, at 9:35 on Pearl.
There's something in my blood. Doctor wouldn't tell me what it was over the phone. That scares the hell out of me.
All units responding. I have a male adult in distress.
This job, it's the only way I know. Do you believe in karma?
I believe in God's justice.
How about a sense of humor?
Guy robs a joint and then gets hit by a dump truck a few feet from the store. Karma's a bitch.
Tuesday, 911, at 10:40 on Pearl.
Book with Expedia's add-on and save up to 56%. Book your flight first, then book your hotel anytime before you fly and save up to 56%. Get big savings with Expedia.
Expedia. 保細保大保大細都保，銀行有存款就自動受保，保利高達港幣50萬，其他貨幣存款一樣保，存款受法律保障。
卓遠 Ackley 香港商標註冊2500蚊，中國商標2000蚊，美國商標6500蚊，歐盟商標11500蚊，提供全球商標註冊服務，免費檢索，請電35212999。
And you? What would you do for love? Miss Dior, the new eau de toilette.
有啲嘢可以放低一時，但好難放低一世。富衛相信退休之後，你可以更盡情去做你一直想做嘅自己。我哋會為你度身訂造退休3大範疇，結合儲蓄、保障、傳承，全方位支持你退休任我行。FWD 富衛保險。
I couldn't get him to say anything else.
What appears to be fussy eating could be the symptom of a deeply entrenched psychological disorder.
He went blind from malnutrition.
It has a heightened sense of kind of anxiety and refusal to it that most parents know isn't right.
Wednesday, the truth about fussy eaters at 8:30 on Pearl's Wellbeing.
Welcome back and to what NASA is calling an historic achievement. SpaceX was able to dock its first commercial spaceship built for astronauts at the International Space Station.
And you can see us. This is an unbelievable view from the space station. You can see Dragon 2 in full light with its nose cone open, its soft capture ring deployed.
A sleek new American-built capsule with just a test dummy aboard docked smoothly with the International Space Station on Sunday.
Soft capture confirmed.
The milestone brings the U.S. one huge step closer to getting back into the business of launching astronauts. The white bullet-shaped Dragon capsule was developed by the SpaceX company of Elon Musk under contract with NASA. It closed in on the orbiting station nearly 260 miles above the Pacific Ocean. Flying autonomously, it linked up on its own without the help of a robotic arm, normally used to guide spacecraft into position. This is the first American-made design for crew spacecraft to pull up to the space station in 8 years. Astronauts have been stuck riding Russian rockets ever since NASA's space shuttle program ended in 2011. And right after that successful docking, space station crew entered SpaceX's Dragon spaceship.
It's an honor and pride for us to meet with this spaceship here on board the International Space Station and become a part of important mission for the U.S. space program.
And once on board, the American astronaut shared a few words as well.
On behalf of Ripley, Little Earth, myself, and our crew, welcome to the Crew Dragon. Congratulations to all of the teams who made yesterday's launch and today's docking a success. These amazing feats show us not how easy our mission is, but how capable we are of doing hard things. Welcome to the new era in spaceflight.
If this 6-day test flight goes well, a Dragon capsule could take 2 NASA astronauts to the orbiting outpost by as early as July. NASA has awarded SpaceX and Boeing Company $6.8 billion to build competing rocket and capsule systems to launch astronauts into orbit from American soil. NASA hopes to achieve that goal by the end of this year. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
At least 23 people were killed when a tornado swept through the U.S. state of Alabama. Thousands have been left without power from the twister that uprooted trees and demolished homes. Roadways were filled with debris, making it more difficult for crews to clean up the mess. America's National Weather Service claimed the tornado had an F3 rating. Storms of that scale can have winds ranging from about 210 to 265 kilometers per hour. A state of emergency in Alabama has been extended. It was initially issued on February 23rd because of flooding. The state's governor also said more severe weather may be on the way.
Pro-democracy lawmakers continue to express concerns about the proposed change to the extradition law, citing a lack of faith in the mainland system. But pro-establishment lawmakers ask them to have faith in Hong Kong's judiciary system. Our Kayla Bloom reports.
Plug the loophole, shouted supporters of the proposed changes to the extradition law. They gathered outside the government headquarters as a 20-day public consultation on the proposal concludes today. The amendment would allow Hong Kong to hand over suspects to places with which the city has no prior extradition agreement. But pro-democracy lawmakers remain firmly opposed to the change, as the law would include extradition to the mainland. Civic Party's Alvin Yeung said mainland system failed to give Hong Kong people confidence. Yeung also expressed worries about governments taking advantage of the proposed change for political purposes. But Holden Chow of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong doesn't see it that way. He said the proposed change would leave the final say to Hong Kong courts. The proposal came after a Hong Kong man allegedly killed his girlfriend in Taiwan last year. But because the city does not have an extradition agreement with Taiwan, the case remains in limbo. Even so, not all Taiwanese support the law change. Protesters, including human rights activists, gathered outside the Hong Kong Economic, Trade and Cultural Office in Taipei today. They are worried that the amended law would allow Taiwanese in Hong Kong to be extradited to the mainland. Kayla Bloom, TVB News.
All right, Jeff, I see we have some Sarah Lee.
That's
news.
right, more World Championship glory. Let's get to it. First, highlights of Sarah Lee's gold medal winning ride yesterday at the World Championships in Poland. Lee dominated the women's keirin, beating Australia's Carly McCullough and Daria Shmileva of Russia. She became the first Hong Kong cyclist to win 2 gold medals at the World Championships. The 31-year-old took the sprint crown on Friday. Thanks to Lee, Hong Kong finished 3rd in the medals table in Prushkov, behind the Netherlands and Australia. To Bundesliga football, and Stuttgart routed Hannover 96 5-1. Mario Gomez scored 4 minutes after the opening whistle. Ozan Kabak and Steven Zuber added braces for the home side. Jonathas had a consolation goal for Hanover. Despite their first win in 9 games, the Reds remain in the relegation zone. However, they are now just 2 points behind the 15th place side, Augsburg. Hanover stays 17th in the table. To the Dutch League, and former English Premier League star Robin van Persie turned back the clock in Feyenoord's 4-0 thrashing of Emmen. The 35-year-old scored a hat-trick to up his tally for the season to 14. He also moved past 200 career league goals. Feyenoord stands third in the standings, 15 points behind leaders PSV Eindhoven. Emmen is third from the bottom and facing relegation.
And now we take you to some crazy carnivals in Europe. In the small town of Laza in Spain, residents honor an ancient tradition for their carnival celebration. They dress up in exquisite costumes and then run through the streets as fast as they can. Many dress up like kings, donning a bizarre headdress with pom-poms. Then there's this wacky carnival in Italy called the Battle of Oranges. In a battle that lasts for 2 days, 9 teams take to pelting each other with oranges. The origins of this spectacle dates back to 1200 AD. And that is a wrap of our news.
Thanks for watching. Good night.
My husband's dead. Lucas Bancol. He's alive.
Do you know a woman named June Osborne?
Yes, my wife.
This is for you.
So she's alive?
We believe so. Yes.
Tonight, The Handmaid's Tale.